So if it's a distinction without a difference, then the real debate is not over the idea of inspiration. The real debate is over what's inspired. Is it verbal inspiration, where all the words are inspired, or is it authorial inspiration, where the authors were inspired to write? And I think that's where the battleground is over this idea of inspiration. What is actually inspired? Is it the words or the author? And I would argue, based upon what we see, based upon what we have, and based upon what we don't have, that it's more likely that it was the authors that God and God's Holy Spirit inspired, carried them along to write. I don't think what we see in our texts is a verbal plenary inspiration, that all the words in the text are breathed out, inspired by God. And the argument is fascinating, because the argument is even from the verbal plenary side is, well, that's only in the originals anyway. Well, conveniently, we have none of the originals. So there's no way to check that. There's no way to even see that. So that's like don't look over here. We don't have this, but scribal errors and all this other kind of stuff make it so, that's why you see what you see. And while that may be true at some level, I think what we actually see is we see authors being moved along by the Holy Spirit to write and to utilize. We see this even in Paul's writings, and I think it's in 1 Corinthians. He's writing and he says, I have a word from the Lord on this. And he says, this next section is not a word from the Lord. This is just my own opinion. And he's writing on it. So at some point, I think he feels like he understands when he's being inspired to write by God and when he's just writing under his own authority. And at some point, I think he even says, but I even think I have the Spirit of God in this. He's trying to communicate that the Spirit is moving, the Spirit is doing something, that God is breathing something, and yet it's not the words, every word on the page kind of a deal. So I would argue that the actual thing that's inspired is the author. It's authorial inspiration, and they're the ones that the Holy Spirit is moving along, and they write. And so what we see is a very human element to the Scriptures, but we see that there is a very God element behind them, and they're working together in this whole